Chris, welcome back to the show.
Brian, good to be back as always.
Where are you in the world today?
Today, I'm sitting in not so sunny Orlando, Florida, but always nice to be here, being from the Northeast when the weather starts to turn in the fall.
Well, that's for sure. Well, hey, today we're going to talk about the Center for Internet Security's Critical Security Controls, or CIS CSC. I'm just going to call it CSC. It's just too much of a mouthful. So, how have you used, with your auditor hat on again, how have you used CSC, to help organizations meet compliance needs, with the subtext being, does CSC actually help organizations reach their compliance needs?
Yeah, for sure. It's a very relative question, but short answer is yes. I'm an advocate of security and compliance being one and the same thing, or it should be one and the same thing. And that's a goal that I stretch for. And the CSC definitely demonstrates that in the way that framework has matured. So just simply put, as an auditor, as an IT assessor, as a security assessor, I've used the CSC as a de facto industry standard for baselines. That much has been clear for years and years, actually over 20 years that I've been exposed to the CSC. So for IT audit and security assessment, it helps enormously during the process of gap analysis, which is the very start of the audit cycle. So having a default standard like that, very prescriptive and laid out in simplistic form, really helps enormously during audit. But more importantly, what are you trying to do as an IT security auditor? Trying to guarantee security controls. So that is a roadmap. The CSC provides that roadmap to conduct best practices and guidelines that you would do as an auditor as you try to assess a system from a security perspective. It's a very prescriptive approach as well. So it provides that structured approach. IT and security assessors and security professionals like technical things. They like blueprints that are prescriptive and not free of gray areas, which is famous usually for compliance and auditors. We talk in the gray areas, but they provide that prescriptive guideline, which is enormously helpful when you attempt to align your business that you're assessing, or the business that you're assessing, with different regulatory alignments that they might be facing, whether it be NIST, whether it be they're subscribing to ISO, or industry and sector specific ones like HIPAA and GDPR and the many others that we face. It provides that automatic regulatory alignment. And then the biggest thing is that risk reduction that it enables you to have. And last but not least, and this is an industry theme, and it's kind of outside the idea of what we do from a monitoring perspective, but it provides a template for continuous monitoring. And this again, I say everything is huge, but that is one of the biggest things, because as an assessor, the best thing that you can have is a immediate and continuous feed on what your security, or how your security controls look, and how effective they are, what the state and presence of those controls. And that's very clearly laid out within the CSC to enable auditors to again, compare what they're finding back to a template in a continuous way. And the continuous aspect is promoted heavily within the CSC, which gives you that proof of security maturity that you need to assess as an auditor. But then for your customer or your business that you're auditing, it provides them that template to be able to give you that proof. So a lot of areas where the CSC fits into the idea of security assessment and audit.
You mentioned presence and state, and I can't tell you how much that is bubbling up into the lexicon for both audit and security. Wherever I travel, people are talking about it. Hey, I want to know that I've got this thing, but I want to know if this thing is working. Is it up to date? Is it actually doing what it's supposed to do? Sort of a validation of those security controls. And it makes intuitive sense, but I think historically it's one of those things where it wasn't really a great way to do it in an automated fashion, especially at scale. So we're just not going to look at it. So, keeping your auditor hat on and
Yeah.
maybe also putting a security hat on top of that, which I know is generally what you do anyways.
Yeah.
Are there any specific, CSC controls that really need prioritization if you're looking to go through preparedness for an audit?
Yeah, there's a few that have been those sort of de facto meaning ones that you're going to lean on as an auditor, and from a security sense. And that's a very important part, Brian, is that you sort of have to balance both worlds, being a security assessor these days. But really, right from the top, the CSC control number one, and for that matter, control number two. So inventory of control enterprise assets. That's the start of the audit process. As I mentioned earlier, one of the important areas where it helps is that the very beginning stages of audit, where you have to understand and control your enterprise, or understand how your customer, your client, is maintaining control over their enterprise, and if they understand where the security controls are and their gaps. So you need to be able to do this. Those two controls set the benchmark of where the posture of the organization is right from the top. So extremely important controls to focus on in the process of security assessment and audit. Then on top of that, you want to support the industry theme of active prioritization of your gaps. Yep. So once you understand all of this stuff, you understand exactly how it's related, the interrelationship between all of your assets and your enterprise, then you need to ensure that you can do this in a prioritized way, or that, I mentioned continuous monitoring before, and that's, that's an industry theme, and auditors and security professionals have no choice but to do that now, because there's a lot of mandates that dictate that. Well, within the CSC comes control number three, which is continuous vulnerability management. And hence they have the word continuous in there. So they're emphasizing the need to do gap assessment in a continuous fashion, constantly, or prioritize, or close to real time, all those buzzwords that we say across the industry. Yeah. But really, this is a demonstration of how you can put your framework into a process where you can obtain that level of inspection and analysis of your environment. So for an auditor, there's a lot of reason to focus on CSC Control 3, because you want to understand that shifting threat surface across your enterprise. And you also want to understand how those shifting vulnerabilities, which we've seen now more than ever these days, could suddenly be affecting your infrastructure more than it did before. Because what you want as an auditor is, what the heck is the level of risk within this organization? How do I give them a sort of a score to say, at the end of the day, I've done your audit, I've assessed your systems, and here's your score. You're an 8 out of 10. Well, how do I prove that? I need that evidence-based data to be able to allow the business to understand where they sit. So control number 3 is critical to sort of connect the dots between your enterprise, your assets, everything that's happening within your environment, and the gaps that you might be finding and that you should be finding in a continuous state.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that the CSC calls out, asset inventory. It's right there in section 1 and section 2. They call out continuous monitoring, and it really feels like it's purpose built, or it's a perfect fit with what we call asset intelligence or attack surface management. So how do those types of solutions, asset intelligence and attack surface management, help to sort of enrich or enable organizations to embrace CSC?
3 words that I can think of off the top is visibility, risk, and control. And those are really important words for a security professional or an auditor, and hence why I always claim that I sit right in the middle. I'm Switzerland in all of these situations. Yeah. So really, and to dig into that a little bit more. So, visibility in your assets. You can't have enough visibility into your assets, and you can never be real time enough to understand what that is. But having a robust or real-time light implementation asset intelligence solution that can give you that visibility when you need it allows you to, again, understand at any given time what the state and presence is of your assets and how they're triangulated to, or how they're related together. And that's enormously valuable. So, a good asset intelligence solution will provide that off the top, because that's what it does. But then, asset vulnerability assessment, as we mentioned, that control number 3, to have the ability to quickly connect the dots between your gaps or your vulnerabilities and those enterprise assets will be a great asset for you as an auditor, or again as a security professional. So you're going to get that out of the box as well by having a decent asset control situation within your environment. And it goes on from there. As once you have that that's the top of the pyramid, but then you get all kinds of benefits as well. Is you're going to be able to automatically identify how security configurations are. Because, once you know everything, who's who in the zoo. Well, now you can start to control it. Well, you got to know how those configurations are changing. And that was the basis of the CSC from way back when. There's the CSC controls, and there's also the benchmarks. And so by having solid asset intelligence, you can not only understand what the visibility, you not only have that visibility, but you also understand what the configurations look like. And then you can get into all kinds of good things from the standpoint of areas where you wouldn't think that asset intelligence would help, like data protection even. There's CSC number 13 and 14, which deal with controlling your data protection policy and protecting data. And it's really about ensuring that you have the appropriate access controls built around your data. And what is protecting your data, your assets, and those security controls, your software, your configurations. You're going to be able to see that and understand how well you're protecting data. And it's critical to everyone, because data is the keys to the kingdom. And that's why we have data breaches. But hence, that's what auditors focus on. They look at the data and they say, what's your business need to know for this data? Do you understand that data? And can you actually use a control such as CSC and a solution to put 2 and 2 together and tell me how well you're protecting your data policy? Are you within those lines? And there's a lot of regulations and mandates now that, unfortunately, or fortunately, from an auditor's perspective, demand that we do this now as organizations. So we're kind of held to that. So it's another great benefit of having robust 4D asset intelligence working on your side.
Awesome. Well, Chris, that was amazing as always. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody for spending some time with us today. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.